everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be talking about my labor and delivery story, birth story. As you can tell, baby girl is here already. And so I wanted to share with you guys what I went through. So if you really want to know my birth story, you know, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try to be more consistent. And yeah, just thank you so much just simply for clicking on this video. All right, let's get to the story. Today I thought, look at that. Yes, she's here, as I mentioned in my previous video. I hope that it can help anyone out there who is either thinking about having a baby or is soon to give birth. My due date was October 29th. She was supposed to be due, right? Baby girl decided to come a little early and I started getting contractions going into like official labor, I guess. October 23rd in the morning, I woke up and I had like cramps. I had cramps here and there, like her little feet. She's just chilling, by the way. She already ate. And I had like cramps. Like if you're a woman, period cramps. They were very mild. They weren't too bad, but I knew that the only reason I was having those was because I was gonna start going into labor. You just know, right? You shouldn't be getting those kind of cramps unless you're gonna go into labor. They weren't close enough where I was, you know, I knew that I still had some time to go. I didn't really panic or anything. I just kind of started tracking them on my phone, like how often. It wasn't that bad, honestly. It was just like a little period cramp. It lasted about, you know, maybe like 30 seconds and it would go away and then it wouldn't come back for another maybe 30 minutes. Sometimes it went up like 5 hours. And about my day, I told my husband that I had started cramping and everything, so I told him that baby girl was gonna come soon. So that was early in the morning. I think around 7 in the morning I started getting my first contraction. So I tried to fall asleep, but you know, I would get woken up by the pain, but it wasn't too bad. It was definitely just like a period cramp. Again, this was October 23rd in the morning. So as the day went by, my husband had to go do a job, so I was home by myself with my dog. Started getting a little bit more consistent, or I guess a little bit longer, a little bit more painful as the day was going on. So as the day progressed, my cramps were getting a little bit heavier. Thankfully, you know, I didn't get any bad ones throughout the day, so I was still able to go about my day. I was still, again, the way that I thought about it was, okay, if I can still do things, if I can still walk, if I can still think, I am fine, right? So that was just kind of like my whole train of thought. So it wasn't until my husband got home that I kind of started getting a little bit more painful contractions, where I was like, okay, I feel like I need to start breathing, right? Like the typical things that you read. So this was at 11 at nighttime. It's when they started getting pretty painful, but again, tolerable, I guess. I wasn't gonna go to the hospital because I told myself that I was not going to be. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. I know some women tend to panic, especially if they're first-time moms. Again, I am a first-time mom, but I had told myself that I did not want to go to the hospital and get sent back because that was just too much work. Plus, I have a dog and he gets really anxious when we leave, so I was not going to do that to him multiple times. So I waited it out. I started bouncing on the ball. I was watching TV. I ate dinner earlier, like around 9 maybe. So I wasn't really hungry. And again, if you've had a baby before and if you've had contractions, you know that you definitely cannot eat when you feel like you're in pain. So this was at 11. I definitely could no longer do stuff. So that's when I knew, I was like, okay, they're getting more intense. So I knew it was time to just kind of relax, start doing my breathing techniques, etc., etc. 1 in the morning, they were getting, you know, of course they're gonna start getting stronger as the the day goes by, or as time progressed, right, they were gonna start getting stronger. So I knew that for sure. However, I still felt like I could handle them at home, so I stuck it. My husband kept telling me to call just to make sure, like, you know, if I should go in or not. So if I'm not mistaken, I called at 1 in the morning, right, at 1 a.m. Bless you, baby. And I told them what I was experiencing, blah, blah, blah. And the lady, the nurse, said that because I was able to have a conversation, kind of explain what was going on, and I hadn't had a contraction within that time frame that we were talking, which was about 8 minutes or so, she advised me to stay home because they were most likely going to send me home. And again, this is something that I did not want to happen. So I told my husband, I was like, okay, I'll just wait it out. This was at 1 in the morning. And it got to 3. I called at 3 again. And they were getting stronger and stronger. Yes, so I waited out 2 more hours. They were getting pretty painful, but you know, I was like, again, I don't want to go to the hospital and be sent back. So I called again, and she was like, well, I'll leave it up to you. You know, they were getting a lot more stronger. I needed to breathe while talking to her, so I definitely was not able to hold like a full-on conversation because I would get the contractions and so forth. So she just advised me, like, you know, obviously it's always up to you, but she said if you feel like you're more dilated, because she did say that they will send me home if I wasn't 4 centimeters dilated. That's how much you need to be dilated to be admitted into the hospital. Again, I did not want to be sent back home, so I was like, okay, thank you, I'll wait it out. Honestly, the 2 hours went by really fast because all of a sudden I realized, again, this is not to say that I was not in pain, but it reached 5 in the morning, and that's when I was like, no, I think we need to go. And so we ended up going to the hospital at 5. Okay. At 5 in the morning the next day. So this was October 24th, right? I had been with contractions already for over 7 hours, and they were getting stronger. So we went to the hospital. It was freezing. I think that was like the first official day that it was cold. So that was just, you know, my luck, but it's fine. And then we ended up going, and they checked me. I mean, at this point, my contractions were very painful. I needed to stop moving, you know, it was painful. So they checked my cervix, and lo and behold, I was 4 centimeters dilated. So they ended up admitting me. You know, I still had the choice to go home and just kind of labor there for as long as I could, but again, I did not want to go back home because I have a dog, and I was not going to get him all riled up again just to leave again. So we had already left them once, and that was enough for me. We arranged for my brother-in-law. Okay, I'm gonna have to pause this video and come back a little later because baby girl is getting fuzzy. Okay, we'll wait until she actually cries. So yeah, we arranged for my brother-in-law to go pick him up. This was like a pre-planned decision already. And yeah, so we ended up getting admitted at 5 in the morning. I was 4 centimeters dilated. By 6 in the morning, I was already okay. Okay, the time frames may be a little bit off because this is when, again, I was in pain. But 5 in the morning we got admitted. I was still going through my contractions, being 4 centimeters dilated. They were getting very intense, and the pain was in my back. So I was having back labor, and I had heard that back labor is the most painful of them all. Okay, I'll be back. Tell him, I want to eat. I want to eat. I want to eat. Back pain, and I was 4 centimeters. I think it went maybe 6, 7, 8. 3 more hours, and then I was at 4 centimeters, and at 6 centimeters around 8 in the morning. And when I tell you I was in pain, I was in pain. They had me connected to an IV, so I couldn't really do a lot of movement, laying down. So in hindsight, I think if I would have been standing up, I would have probably had been more able to resist the pain a little bit better, but I just didn't think about it in the moment. And the nurses kept telling me, like, when are you going to think about if you want to get the epidural or not? And again, when I thought about my labor, people kept asking me, like, oh, what are your, do you want to get the epidural or not? And I always would tell them I don't have any expectations, because in reality, I didn't know how my body was going to react. So I just kind of went along with it, and I told them, I'm going to go as far as I can handle. So I wasn't against it, and I wasn't like, oh, that's like the first pain that I get, I'm going to get it. So I truly tried to last as long as I could with the pain, but eventually I thought to myself, okay, do I want to be in pain for I don't know how many more hours, because I was 6 centimeters dilated, so I still needed 4 more, or do I actually want to enjoy my labor and enjoy, just the whole experience? And again, I didn't want to have a traumatic experience, and I think I made the right decision in that moment. So I ended up getting the epidural. It's not as simple as just getting a needle stuck through it. I can, make another video about, what an epidural actually is. And again, in the sense of what my experience was. So if you want me to make a video on that, just let me know down below. But I ended up getting the epidural around 10 in the morning. So at this point, I had been in labor for 11, almost 12 hours of pain. So when I tell you the relief I felt once the epidural started kicking in was amazing. I was able to actually enjoy the process of it. And yeah, so I knew when the contractions were happening, because I started getting tightness in my stomach. So they're called like Braxton Hicks, that you will usually get throughout your pregnancy. So I knew when the contraction was happening, and I couldn't eat anymore. So as soon as you get the epidural, you can no longer eat. So at this point, I hadn't eaten since the day before, 9 p.m. and it was already 10 a.m. So I had been already 12 plus hours of not eating, and I still couldn't eat. So all I could have was just water, and I was filling myself up with water. Again, I was starting to I wasn't hungry at that time, but it was kind of like, okay, my body started feeling like, okay, you haven't eaten. And as soon as my husband and the nurse left the room, I actually ended up throwing up, and it was just water. So I ended up throwing up. I know that was probably a side effect of the epidural, plus not having eaten and drinking so much water, the IV and everything that was going on. So I ended up throwing up, and then I felt better. And then a little bit later, I ended up throwing up again. So I threw up 2 times. I'm guessing it was also because my body was going through so much pain, but I didn't feel it. This was kind of the way that my body reacted. So yeah, I ended up throwing up. And hold on. And yeah, so I ended up going through that process, just kind of waiting it out, right? They kept checking, and I checked. And then I was at 8 centimeters. And then eventually it wasn't until 9 p.m. No, I'm sorry, 8. Finally at 10 centimeters dilated. At this time, I was actually starting to get really, really hungry, which was super funny, because when they were like, oh, it's time for you to start pushing, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. I couldn't concentrate, and And funny thing was that my husband ended up ordering DoorDash, Chick-fil-A, and maybe 40 minutes before I was actually they actually checked me for my dilation number, and he went to go check it. He couldn't find it. The lady ended up leaving it in a room at the entrance, and he just couldn't find it. So by the time he came back, I was like, oh, you ate already? He's like, no, I couldn't find it, blah blah blah. So I was kind of mad that happened, because why would she just leave it there? And two, the doctors were like, or the nurses were like, well, she's ready to push, so he couldn't eat anymore. He hadn't eaten either. He had a snack at the cafeteria, I think, or something. So we were both really hungry at that point. So they kind of taught me, the doctor actually, she kind of prepped me and told me like, okay, this is how you're gonna push, let's practice. So I ended up actually practicing how to push before the real thing begins. Started pushing around 8:15-ish, or 8 o'clock, somewhere around there, I don't remember. And the doctors were like, or the nurse was like, oh, you know, usually first time moms are pushing for 2 to 3 hours, so we expect baby girl to be here either by midnight. And I was like, no, I am not pushing for that long, heck no. So, you know, me puse las pilas. Like, I actually was like, okay, you got this. Because I mean, I wasn't feeling pain. It was just so much pressure. So I was like, no, I can do this. So I started pushing. My husband was a champion. He actually was holding one of my legs up, because again, I had the epidural, so I had I couldn't lift my own legs. And then the nurse was holding the other one. The only thing was that the doctor got a call, and she's like, I'll be back. She did not come back. So it was literally my husband, myself, and the nurse in the labor, like during my labor. There was no one else, so we were there for however long. Every contraction that I was feeling, again, I could tell the contraction that I was having based off the pain, like the pressure that I was feeling. So I told them, okay, I think I'm getting a contraction. They were like, okay. The nurse was amazing. It was so funny the way that she was doing it. So I was actually able to enjoy the process. I felt baby girl when she was like, her head was coming out. Again, it wasn't like painful, but it was just so much pressure, like so much pressure. I could literally feel her, like, you know, coming. And my husband was watching the whole thing. So nonetheless, she came out at 9:10 p.m. So I was pushing for an hour and like about 20 minutes, which will, you know, the nurses and the doctor were really impressed, because again, like they had told me, first time moms usually are in labor for a long time. I actually wanted to have a memorable birth experience, and I do not regret it, because I was able to enjoy my baby. I did have a 2nd-degree tear, so again, because I had the epidural, I didn't feel it. They sewed me up, and when the placenta, you know, when they took out the placenta, I didn't feel it. It was just like a lot of pressure. So yes, I think overall it was the most painful, weird, long, beautiful experience that, so yeah, she came October 24th, 2024 at 9:10 p.m. and we are so blessed. She's gonna be 2 months, December 24th, and as Hispanic Latinos, you know, that's our Christmas, so it's gonna be very beautiful. But yes, I'm gonna cut the video because she's getting fuzzy. She wants to sleep. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. My next video is going to be about my breastfeeding journey. So if you really want to know and, leave questions about that in the comments below, please feel free to do so. I might do a poll on my Instagram. I'll leave my Instagram handle somewhere up here. And yeah, comment if you have any questions, or how are you feeling if you're about to give birth. And yeah, thank you guys so much for just clicking on this video. And I'm gonna try, hopefully I kept it short enough that you stuck this long. And I hope you guys have a blessed and amazing holiday season. Good.